Last time on the WizardCast.
Oh my, holy podcast, Mark. Have you seen the download stats?
No, I don't have access to those, Brian. You know you're supposed to tell me these things.
I've only been sending you hang-up messages and tweeting for weeks.
Yeah, your first mistake is assuming I read your messages.
2,000 downloads, Mark. 2,000 downloads in April.
What?
We've gotten popular.
What? No.
What do you mean no? It's great. We're growing so quickly. Soon we may be as popular, or dare I say more popular than the Salesforce Admin Podcast. Hi, Jillian.
No, Brian. This is terrible. I don't know what we're going to do now. I mean, that's it. We're no longer cool. We're popular. So we can't be edgy and we can't be cool. There's nothing for it. We'll have to pack it up. We're done. No more WizardCast. Oh no. Or we could either that or we could get huge corporate sponsorship in the latest Disney blockbuster and completely sell out.
Today's episode is brought to you by The Avengers Infinity War movie. Go see it. Tell the King of Wakanda we sent you.
And now the conclusion of the WizardCast.
I'm Brian Kwong.
And I'm Mark Ross.
We're Salesforce experts that love talking about technology and Salesforce.
We also love humor. Doesn't mean we're actually good at it.
In the Salesforce community, I'm known as the Salesforce Wizard, likely due to me wearing a wizard hat at Salesforce events.
And I'm known as Salesforce Yoda for pretty much the same reason.
You should see the ears.
We have a passion to help educate and entertain people.
So we've joined forces to create WizardCast.
We've got tips and best practices.
We talk with interesting people.
All mixed with quote-unquote jokes and humor.
Welcome
to the
WizardCast. Mark, my aunt came to visit for summer vacation.
Cool. Did you meet her at the airport?
Oh, no, I've known her for years.
I can't believe I walked into that one. Folks, we desperately need joke submissions, or Brian is going to keep coming up with terribly awful jokes by searching for them on Google. Please email us at wizardcast@wizardnews.com or tweet us at wizardcast_pod, please.
Mark, if the joke was terribly awful, that means it was really bad at being awful and therefore good. Thanks.
That's not what that means, Brian.
Today's episode is brought to you by Astro's best summer vacation traveler agency.
There we go. Back with the fake sponsors. Oh, gee.
And if they had a podcast, they would host with Lipson, one of the largest podcast hosting companies. I bet they got their first month free with the promo code PODMAGIC.
You combined a fake sponsor with the real sponsor. It's kind of like crossing the streams. Either way, Brian, your shame has no limits. Just like Thanos in the latest action blockbuster, Avengers Infinity War, now playing in theaters.
When did you become the corporate shell?
Since it's a comic book movie?
I heard Thanos is Darth Vader's son.
Just spoilers.
Even though it's May, summer is around the corner.
Which means it's time for the Summer Release Notes WizardCast Review.
Release notes! Release notes! Party time! Excellent! All right.
Killer.
First, we're going to review everything that has nothing to do with Lightning Experience. And now onto the Lightning-related features.
We'll put links to the release notes, the release webinar, and the readiness group in the show notes, so you can go and find them after you're done listening to us.
So, Mark, what's the first thing we should probably talk about? Something that's, already out.
Something that's already out.
Do you know what's better in Lightning?
Reports? No, that can't be it. That can't be it. Hang on.
The better in Lightning. So starting, I believe it was April 10th, they started these releases of It's Better in Lightning features. So if someone is in Classic but has the permission to use Lightning Experience, they start getting various messages to say, hey, try it in Lightning, try it in Lightning, try it in Lightning.
Yes, and if you thought that maybe Salesforce should have let you know that they were going to do such a thing, and maybe it shouldn't have been quite so forced on your users. Here we are again. They're letting you know this time, but they're not going to stop doing this. They're going to keep throwing up stuff at your users. Sorry. And the word from the PMs is they don't really have the intent of backing down. It's an effective tool for helping them research Lightning and getting it out there, so I can't really blame them, but...
Have you read the release notes in Lightning yet?
The release notes in Lightning?
Well, I'm assuming it's the Lightning release notes now.
Are you sure it's not Einstein Lightning release notes?
Okay. Anyways, Mark,
So
the better in Lightning stuff, can we take it off? Can we change it? Can we get rid of it?
it's not really clear. So some of these things, the release notes, I kind of read them a few times and perused over them. It was actually hard to tell. Some of them are configurable. Like there's a certain amount that you can do for the task-based one as to when it shows up. But there's a new feature that they're going to be doing where they're going to be, if you have Lightning actually like partially on in your org at all of your users will be automatically switched back to Lightning at some point, and you can set it to either weekly or daily, and those are your options. And again, it's not really clear as to whether or not you can set certain users to opt out of that. So be prepared. You're going to be getting some people asking about this Lightning thing. If you really don't want people in Lightning, then you got to be blocking your users from it.
I have this overwhelming desire for us to now play the snippet from The Lion King where Scar's singing, "Be prepared." No?
No. Nice try, though. They are also releasing an app. Well, they call it an app, but it's basically a setup menu option for Lightning usage. So you can actually see what your Lightning usage is like and check out various aspects of adoption.
Great thing to have if you do a training. You turn everyone on and you want to see if people are actually using it or not.
Yeah. So you get the good, you get the bad, the facts of life.
There's also going to be some updates to search.
So, and actually, we're recording this episode. The summer sandboxes have already been updated. If you have a sandbox, there's a very good chance that it is now in summer. So I've actually seen this in effect. There's a little drop down now. If you go and you look, there's a little drop down by the search bar and lets you pick an actual object. So you can say, as you're searching, only show me accounts,
right?
Only show me products. You get to pick. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and there's more things you can search. Things like you can now actually search list emails. I think they used to call that mass email, as well as case comments, which is kind of cool because, I don't know if you've done a lot of service, Mark, but there's always the time where you go, oh yeah, well, we had that one customer that gave that feedback. What was it again? You don't remember who it was or what the case numbers are not memorable whatsoever. Right. So that's a pretty neat addition.
No, that's definitely useful. My job before doing Salesforce was running a service desk, so I know exactly how valuable this can be. Yeah. The other thing that we actually have now in search is something called synonym groups, which is pretty cool. It's basically the ability to establish certain groups of words as being synonyms of each other.
Like what?
Well, Salesforce has some that are already built in. Things like file and document. Salesforce will actually recognize those as synonyms in a search. So if you search for document, it will automatically also pull up things that say file. It understands that these are common terms. Hi and hello, pictures, photos.
Wait, why would you be searching for hi and hello?
These are just the standard synonyms that they've set up.
Okay.
Presumably, because people are, trying to search things like case comments and emails.
Oh, okay. Fair point.
But you do have the option of also setting your own custom synonym groups as well. So things that may be much more applicable,
like
to your
WizardCast and Great
vertical.
Podcast.
That's probably not the user's vertical that are listening. But if you had certain things that were industry-specific terms that were interchangeable, then you'd be able to set those, like flammable and inflammable. If you were, I don't know.
There's a difference?
At the WD-40. No, there isn't a difference. That's my point. You didn't know this.
Flammable and
flame. Inflammable and flammable mean the exact same thing.
Anyways, are you an Einstein user?
Wow. Okay. No, and I would wager that not many people are, but some of the Einstein stuff they're doing is pretty cool.
Yeah, so you're not going to care about forecasting being GA and the app scoring, the lead scoring.
I mean, from the perspective of somebody who's not using it yet, but probably will at some point in the future, I think it's the fact that they have all these Einstein features now going GA and no longer beta is a milestone. Even if I'm not going to use it right now, that's still an important thing to note. You have that look on your face that says you don't necessarily agree.
I don't know. I mean, of course, I'm coming from a completely different perspective, right? I work for a small company. We service predominantly smaller companies. And so a lot of those folks just don't have the data.
Nor will they ever, probably.
Or probably never, to really be able to say,
based on the current
let's
standards.
pay for Einstein.
Yeah.
Right? So some of this stuff sounds really cool and can get people excited until they realize that they can't use it. And I'm pretty sure it's an extra cost, even though it doesn't call that out in the release notes.
No, I'm pretty sure it is as well. But the thing is, what we're looking at here is the GA release of major AI features on a major technology platform.
Yeah.
That's
pretty cool. And yeah. I was actually in the pilot for Einstein forecasting. Not that we got any actual useful data out of it because our data wasn't enough. But the concept is actually pretty cool to have the AI say, based on your historical thing, this is where we think your pipeline's actually going to be because you have sales to just magically come in at the end of the quarter that you don't know about at the beginning of the quarter. Or that you know that this particular group of people have a tendency to sandbag, and so their forecasts should be higher or lower. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And the thing is, Brian, you're in a place where you're working with relatively small orgs. And the things that are needed for Einstein to operate are pretty high, as a pretty high bar to clear. But in a few years' time, that bar will lower, and your orgs that you're working with will get bigger. So you may meet in the middle.
Maybe. We'll find out. I really want to say it's not the size of the org that matters. It's how you use it, Mark.
Einstein helps you use it better?
Oh, we should not be on the Salesforce marketing team.
Einstein helps you use it better. Presented by Disney.
The one thing I'm pretty excited about is the campaigns in Lightning. Finally. Not only are...
Finally, we've had campaigns in Lightning.
Yeah, but not all the features were in there. Like, campaign members were not what you would call easily usable or at all in Lightning. Yeah. Now it will be. And now you're going to be able to do some interesting things that I don't think you can do in Classic, like add all contacts from a single account to a campaign. You're going to be able to send the list emails now to campaign members. Be able to filter your views to be able to see, contacts versus leads, things like that.
Some pretty cool stuff there.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, especially if you're someone who's been forced in Lightning and you can't use Classic anymore.
Which is an increasing thing that is happening more and more these days. Speaking of things that you would have lost had you been forced to go to Lightning, I know not a lot of people use this, but quite a few people do, and the ones that do tend to really love it. And that's Topics.
We're talking release notes. That's the topic.
No. The topic is Topics.
The topic is that's very meta.
The functionality called Topics.
What's a topic?
Brian. So there's is now a Lightning component called Topics, and it's basically like a tag cloud. And that any given record, you can assign a topic, whether it's created ahead of time, or if you have the rights, you can create a topic there.
Kind of like a hashtag on Chatter.
Exactly. Now, this is not fully delivered. Like, they have admitted themselves. Like, if you look on the idea for Topics in Lightning in the idea exchange, it says partially delivered.
How is it partially delivered? Is it or not there?
So that's the thing. It says in the release notes that it's partially delivered, but it does not say how it's partially delivered. All I know is that you do have a Lightning component that you can put on your page for topics, and that you can enter your topics there, search for existing ones, create new ones.
Okay. Dependent pick lists. So dependent pick lists have always been kind of okay, we made it, now you guys figure it out sort of thing. Right. Which means if you were doing it from certain places, you couldn't change a pick list value because it had a dependent pick list? Yeah, especially in Lightning. Yeah. It was really, really bad there. But now we have some of those places have been fixed, like being able to update dependent pick lists from a path. Or the record itself. Or from a Kanban board. Kanban?
Kanban. It's Kanban.
I'm looking at spelling right now. Kanban.
I bet you pronounce it GIF too, don't you?
Like the peanut butter.
Oh, we're going to have a problem. Can we move on to the next thing now? Paths. Speaking of paths for contacts. That's a thing. So the better ability to convert leads.
How is it better?
So previously, if you had contacts to multiple accounts turned on, you were going to have a few more issues with that because you're going to be limited to what you could already do. That is based off of your primary contact. You didn't have any capacity to do a different account with a different contact.
No,
So now, when you convert a lead to an existing contact, you can associate that contact with a new or an existing account, so that it doesn't have to be, the same account. They don't have to have that automatic association now.
Right. Now that is something that requires an admin to set up, though.
Right. Well, you have to have the
contacts to many accounts. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, which is if let's put it this way: if you don't have contacts to multiple accounts, you should at least consider it. I mean, it's not necessarily for everyone. It does add some complexity, but it's pretty damn useful. I'll say that.
You know what is a drag on the release notes, Mark?
What is a drag on the release notes, Brian?
Two things. You can now drag and drop attachments for email templates, and you can drag calendar items all over your calendar.
Those are nice. I like that. So you've used person accounts in the past. I know they're a problem, but we have them in Lightning now.
And to be fair to person accounts, yes, I've hated on them for years. They had their place, and they've gotten better. They're getting a little bit better in this new release because they're available in Lightning.
Person account setup was not doable. Also, if you had an action that was pointing to accounts and you happen to be setting up a person account with it, like there were certain fields, like the first name, last name, that wouldn't work. It will now automatically recognize that this is a person account when you're loading it, and the action will show you those person account fields, make those available. So that's pretty cool. Duplicate management, we now have that on custom objects.
So for people who are actually using duplicate management, and you all should, it's not just for accounts, contacts, and leads. You can put it on custom objects, which I think is pretty darn nice considering, it's a very customizable platform, and if duplicates are just a fact of life.
Yeah, and so I will say this, if you're not using them and you dive into it, you're going to have some heartburn at first. It's going to be painful. Setting duplicate management up is difficult. You've got to persevere. You've got to be willing to tinker with it, whittle at it, eventually get it down to something that works well. Just something to be prepared for from personal experience.
Duplicate management brought to you by Tums.
Speaking of heartburn, reports. So, yeah, this is interesting. You're going to, if you're in Lightning, you're gonna load up your report builder, and it's gonna be completely different.
Well, that's because there's now the report builder and the Lightning report builder, which has been out for a while. You could use it,
but now it's defaulted to on for everybody.
Yeah. How have you been playing around with the Lightning report builder?
A little bit. So,
do you like it?
It's not bad. It's not bad. I can get behind it.
I've had a few pet peeves, and I'm glad they're fixing a couple of them. Like, you couldn't do things like date equals or not equals blank, null, or pickless value not equal blank, or actually just type in the darn date, right? You had to go through the stupid calendar to do it.
And now we have all those things.
Now those are things. There's still a few things that annoy me, like if you wanted to go through and let's say you need to add multiple fields to the report, right? Like a whole bunch of different currency fields. Well, in the report builder, the non-Lightning version, you would simply turn on the currency filter or the number filter, and then maybe put the word amount in because all your fields have the word amount, and hit Control click and just go down the list and drag
the whole
thing you go. And with the Lightning report builder, you basically do one field at a time.
Yeah. Now you do have the option of actually typing in your filters in Lightning Report Builder. You could do that technically in Classic as well, but it was a bit more of a pain. This is a lot simpler. So, if you know what your field names are, you might be better off just doing it that way. Yeah. It's kind of like a built-in quick find in your filters. It's a all-in-one quick find and add to filter. But one of the big things that Lightning Reports let you do now, the new Lightning Report Builder, is running reports without saving them.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Which, if you've been using the Lightning Report Builder beta, you've been able to do.
Right. But this is now GA stuff. Also, building your charts is back on the builder itself. You don't have to go run your report to edit the chart, see that it's wrong, go back. Edit it. Yeah.
Other report changes. One thing that I think I wish they had is earlier was being able to say, I'm on the report now, add the chart for this report directly to a dashboard. Versus being on the dashboard,
right,
dragging the report on, selected use source or chart. What is it? Use the source chart.
Right.
You just click and
you
go.
Couldn't even do source chart in Lightning.
Yes, and now both options are available.
Now they're both there, so you can have source charts and you can just push directly to your dashboard.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Should we talk about the big thing that everyone has been clamoring for years for when it comes to reports and dashboards?
You can have the honors.
Subfolders.
Sir.
Only in Lightning.
Subfolders, more than meets the eye.
It's only in Lightning experience.
Yes, but then we don't get our sponsorship dollars.
Yeah, G.I. Joe's not getting a sponsorship dollars at all. Yeah, so for those of you who are unaware, there was no way to organize your folders. You just had one incredibly long list of folders, and the best thing you could do is maybe naming convention. But now you could actually have subfolders and organize your reports and dashboards in a subfolder, make things a little bit cleaner, a little bit easier for people to navigate and find.
Which is pretty nice.
If you're in Lightning.
If you're not, well, we got news for you. Yeah. So this is the point. I mean, we've already had a few things which have been very clearly like, yeah, you got to be in Lightning to get this. Things like, embedding your flow into a page. Yeah, okay. But we're really now starting to see a demarcation of, oh yeah, there's some pretty cool stuff, and you don't get it if you're not in Lightning. This was something that was wanted for a very long time by a very large amount of people. And, Salesforce just drew a line in the sand, man. You're going to have to cross over. I don't mean you, Brian. I mean, like, anybody who wants this. It's a thing.
And it's potentially a big thing.
If you were pained by the fact that when you're looking at reports and dashboard lists that you can't see very many columns, like you could in Classic, good news for you. We now have those extra columns, like last run. Thank God.
Wrap text.
Being able to wrap your text in those columns as well. And then, if you care about Lightning joined reports, yeah, you got that now if you really want. I'm sorry.
Beta.
It's a beta. Yeah, you got to go flip a switch. There's a setting you have to go turn on. Have fun with that.
I like the concept of joining reports, but it is
the
fugly.
concept.
It's so concept.
Fugly. Yeah, on paper it sounds great, and then you actually get it, and you're like, I have no actual use for this.
Well,
so
I have a lot of use for joining reports, but it's so fugly. I just do it in Excel.
It's not usable. That's the problem.
It's not usable enough.
The state that they're delivered in, they're not usable, so that you have no use for it. Is what it ends up.
If you're looking for the raw data, I mean, if you can build a chart off, it's better. But anyways,
there are a lot of strict restrictions to the Lightning join reports, just like there are for join reports in Classic. There's even more, I'm sure, because it's Lightning. They're still working out bugs, and it's beta.
Do you know what is about time that it's coming out?
To time field.
Yeah, it's the time field. Hi, Vladimir.
Let's do the time field again.
Oh, that's terrible. So the time field's generally available. One thing I didn't quite get from the release notes and for the GA announcement or the beta announcement with the time field is if I put in 12 o'clock, right? And I'm in Central Time, and you are in Western Time for your locale, and you look at that record. Do you see 12 o'clock, or does it update to your locale,
So
your time zone?
My understanding is that it shows 12 o'clock.
Yeah, that's my understanding, too.
12 o'clock is 12 o'clock is 12 o'clock, and it ignores time zones.
Which can be really confusing to larger orgs that are used to having the time zone calculation to have. And it makes sense because it's just a time. There's no date time to go with it. So you can't tell when it's like, oh, hey, this is actually into the next day in the time zone.
For people, there are people, because this has been in beta, right? Time field has been in beta for some time. People have been using it. They've talked to the PMs. There's quite a few people who've been like, what the hell is this? Why is it not consistent with the same way that time works with date time, with time zones, et cetera, and practically every other place in Salesforce? And they have heard you. They are looking at ways of giving you the option. But that's safe harbor, that's roadmap, that's going to be a while. But it's a thing that's being looked at.
All right. Should we talk about our favorite topic?
We've talked about Avengers a lot already in this podcast. I don't know what else you want to say. It'd be
flow.
Oh!
There's some crazy process and flow announcements. One of them being, if you are in the essentials, the new Lightning essentials for small business, or if you're in professional edition, which impacts a lot of my customers, you can now get up to 5 flows
or processes,
which is crazy. I mean, professional edition had 5 processes for a while now when they did the Lightning. Lightning professional edition sometime last year. But flow, that's a big thing. I was shocked when I read that.
And the thing is, it's exactly what Salesforce wants to do. They want to give you, in this case, the first 5 free.
Hooked.
Yeah, exactly. Once people start getting into it and they're seeing all the possibilities that they can do, as opposed to just being told. There's a difference between being told what you can do with a higher level of Salesforce
and seeing it,
and actually being able to make it and see it and use
experiencing it.
And then you need number 6, and then you're like, what do we do? I guess we better talk to Salesforce.
Something that everyone's going to be happy about is better error messaging and better error handling just in general. Like instead of saying an unhandled fault occurred with ID blah, 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 that is god-awful, right? Because a process or flow got failed to launch, say, from a validation role.
Right. So a few things. If you've got a process now that kicks off and it hits a validation rule, instead of just saying an unhandled fault to your user, it will actually show a bunch of gobbledygook, but right in the middle of all that gobbledygook will be the actual validation rule error text, instead of just leaving it so that nobody gets to see it and it's just unhandled fault. So thank you.
And instead of the idea actually says the name of the process of the flow that caused the problem.
Exactly. So some big improvements there. In terms of the error emails that we get, couple big ones. One, we can actually set who gets them.
It's setting using basically the same who's going to get like the Apex exception error messages. So it's in the general workflow type notification.
Right. There's a place to put in who gets the Apex exception emails, and it's a setting,
and it's global. It's org wide. It's not like, hey, this process goes to this person and that process goes to that person. If you're in there, you're getting all the errors, including the Apex exception errors.
Yeah. So this still offers at least +1 level of control that we didn't have before. And it's not going to route to whoever the last person who edited a flow was. You can say, no, all of your flow errors go to this user's email address. So that's pretty fantastic.
Yes. And it can be more than one person.
Also, the flow error emails that you're going to get are now going to have org IDs in them.
Which, from a consultant standpoint, can be good if you remember to grab every single org ID for your customers.
Yeah. From a consultant standpoint, like, this is the item when I looked at it, I said, I should probably be keeping like a spreadsheet of all of my client org IDs.
Really? We put it directly in Salesforce, Mark. I guess that means I'm just a better consultant.
What?
It's even in the name.
He went there, folks. He went there.
This may be the last episode with Mark and I together.
Yeah, because after we're done recording, I'm going to tell him how Avengers Infinity War ends.
Safe harbor.
Okay, so what else do we have here?
Daytime inputs?
Daytime inputs? Oh, yeah, this was nuts.
You know, that I actually ran into this a couple months ago where I had a customer who wanted to be able to create an event in a flow, and it's such a headache to do it right now because there is no daytime. There's no time good input method, right? So you basically have to say, tell me the date, tell me what time, and then because we have this wonderful thing called time zones in the world, you have to come up with the calculation for the user locale to make sure it saves at the right time, because date time saves and GMT in Salesforce. So if someone says, hey, it's noon on April 1st, that's got to be noon April 1st GMT when it saves. And so if you're in the States, you either have to ask your users to do the time conversion, or you had to do the time conversion yourself in the formula and flow, and that's an overwhelming pain.
Blah, 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 blah. So now they'll automatically handle it for you. Some other things that we're getting. So there's a couple things that have gone live that few people have been like, what the hell do I use this for? One of those that was in beta and is now GA is flow stages. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that supports this. And now we're getting an idea of what these are going to be used for, because they're releasing some other stuff that it looks like this was laying the foundation for. And one of these is called guided engagement. So this is another thing I looked at it and I was like, what is this exactly? And now the release notes actually have some pretty good use cases to help understand. So here's essentially what this is. This guided engagement thing is primarily when you have like a service desk or, a group of people all working on a single thing. In a service environment, you may have, people working on a ticket, and you think that the source of the problem is this area of the software. And you're working through it, and you figure out, oh, no, wait, it's not this. It's another thing entirely. It's another part of the software. And there's another person that handles that. And so you've got to hand that off. You might be on the phone with the person at the time when this goes off. So what the idea is that if you're actually working through, a flow and you're actually doing your troubleshooting and it's walking you through how do I handle all this, you can pause the flow and then pass it off to another user who can then, based on the stage that was set, pick up that flow where you left off. And maybe it's not service, maybe it's sales. Maybe you have an outside sales and an inside sales group, where the outside sales is, they're the ones who are like talking and engaging and trying to get people to be interested in the product. And then you have the inside sales group whose job it is basically just to take down data and not worry about trying to sell stuff. Well, that's a phone call that you're essentially passing on. Somebody else has to pick up that conversation. So anything like that where you basically have multiple people who may be working on a single thing, you want to pause flows, pass them around. Maybe you want to have multiple flows running simultaneously. That's a thing that this can do if you have console. There's some pretty cool stuff. And I like it because it's a new kind of creative aspect of flow that we haven't really had before. So it's new tools, new toys, and we'll see exactly what people start doing with it. I'm actually looking forward to Dreamforce this year and going and seeing what people are presenting on for how they're using things like guided engagement. Because, I have a couple ideas in my head of how I'd use it.
Mm-hmm.
Not that many. I'd love to see what other people are coming up with. There's another thing that is happening as a result of stages, or as part of stages and kind of tied to it. And that's that there are some things happening with Flow. I think they mentioned it in spring. It might be having some forward moving in summer. It's the ability to actually have Flow that works with a local JavaScript engine.
Say what?
Yeah. Essentially, you could have, let's say you have some sort of
JavaScript engine?
Like a browser extension or an executable running on your machine or something like that. or even just, your browser's own ability to process JavaScript as opposed to a server. The idea is that Flow will then now be able to interact with your browser and its capabilities via the JavaScript engine. And so this sounds like kind of like, why would you even do that? But the point is that it's going to enable different types of interfaces that we wouldn't have had before. And a lot of these are going to start
window,
to be...
close window.
Well, things like that, but that's a bit two-dimensional, no pun intended, for some of the stuff they're thinking about. It's different different ways of doing user interaction, like mouse over, drag and drop.
On-click do this.
Right, exactly. On-click stuff, mouse over stuff. And making that available to us as Flow designers. So, and a lot of this is, a lot of these things are already in Lightning components, but if it's not in Flow, it's not in Flow. So it's making these things available to us. What we're going to start seeing is certain like Lightning components and things like that not being released as part of a Salesforce release because they have to go through certain amounts of security procedures, but rather being released in kind of a semi-beta state by the PMs on GitHub. So be on the lookout, Flow people, for some interesting things coming from the Flow PMs. I would personally like to get one of them on the show to talk about these local actions. We'll see.
And
how
I
that
know
goes.
some of you listen.
Yeah.
Let us know if you want to be.
We want to talk to the local actions people.
Okay. Let's talk about probably one of the more confusing things when it comes to process and flow, and that's basically how Salesforce is actually running it, right? The whole bulkification, scheduled stuff.
No, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to. No.
Because it's confusing sometimes even to us. So one change is essentially how batches of flows are going to be processed.
Didn't we already talk about this?
No. This is, like I said, it's confusing. So like right now, let's say we have a whole bunch of queries in a schedule action that happens, right? It gets called by 3 different users. Right now, all those happen as a single transaction, even though it was done by 3 different users, and so it could push you over your limit. Where in Summer 18 and going forward, instead of being all grouped together, it's going to be grouped by user. So instead of having one huge transaction, you would have 3, one for each user. Now, even I kind of scratch my head and go, okay, if I try to apply like a real live example of when this is going to occur, even I kind of get confused and glazed-eyed. But that makes a lot of sense on one hand, right? Is to have everything that's happening by user be batched individually, because it's tough as it is to kind of look at your automation and go, am I going to hit a limit or am I not going to hit a limit?
And the thing is, and again, Flow people are listening, be aware, users, that you may not be hitting query limits, you'll still hit element limits. While that 2,000 element limit exists, and an element is a box, right? A box in Flow. At runtime, if you're hitting 2,000 of those, like maybe you have a loop that loops 200 times, and it's got 10 boxes in the loop. Well, that's 2,000. You're going to hit your limit. It's a flat.
And if the flow gets called twice,
it gets called twice, then you've got half that available to you. So, until that 2,000 goes away, we're going to have a hard time making Flow really enterprise level for anything that could possibly be hit by mass data actions.
Right. And I actually ran into this. I was curious to try to figure out exactly how it's been running. I think I told you this, right? I was like going, okay, how many different chatter posts can I put in? Because I thought there might be an action limit to chatter, and I couldn't find it. Like, hey, you can only do so many chatter posts within a transaction. So I created basically a 3-element loop to say iterate through 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way up to whatever number I specified, post a chatter post. And because it was 3 elements and I was calling it manually, you could do 666 chatter posts. Just under that 2,000 limit.
That's evil.
And 667 fails. Too many elements. But that means there's pretty much no limit to the number of chatter posts you can do as long as it's within your element limit.
You know that's the number of the beast. I don't know which beast. Maybe it's Appy, maybe it's Cody, maybe it's...
Is Astro Beast?
He's kind of a man beast.
So if you listen to our Spring 18 release, we talked about a critical update.
Critical update. And that... Wait.
So you remember that critical update for enabling full process queries to execute in batches?
Yes.
That was optional. Now it's going to be turned on.
It's going to be turned on. Also, your URL format goes into effect, like it or not. And that means in your sandboxes. So here's the thing. This is where it threw me, because I hit this today, actually. The critical update for URL changes, where they're going to replace the whole like 1/1.app thing with a new format. That was supposed to go into effect on a certain date. That's what the critical update says. And you're like, oh, okay, that's fine. And they said it's going into effect in Summer 18 on a certain date. Great. Well, your sandboxes that are already on Summer 18, they don't care that the date hasn't happened yet. The sandboxes are on Summer 18, so they're automatically flipped. So all of your sandboxes are automatically going to be using this new format, and you're SOL if you haven't gotten your stuff changed in a sandbox yet.
If you're on the preview.
Yes, exactly. Which most people probably are going to be. So watch out for that. But that is a big. That's going to catch you. If you got report links anywhere, you got fields or links or anything that goes to a report link, you better go fix it. What other critical updates do we have?
What about partial save?
That's so processes. Yeah, processes are now getting partial save. So if you're updating 200 records, one of them fails, the other 199 will actually save. So that's a thing. There are certain cases where that doesn't work. Like if you're sending out 200 emails and one of them fails, they'll all fail. Like there are certain types. So the list of things that will fail still is in the release notes. Let's see what else we got here.
Preventing HTML-based email templates from working in Internet Explorer.
Yep. Yeah. You know what? Critical updates.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say about that. And this is one I particularly like because this has actually burnt me a few times. If you've had my domain on an org and then you go and make a sandbox and you're working with it and then you go refresh the sandbox, there's a very good chance that the sandbox, once refreshed, will not be on the same server. So if you were on CS19 and then you refresh, maybe it ends up on CS26. Well, the problem is all your URLs said CS19 and now they say CS26, even when logging in.
Are you telling me you're hard coding the instance?
No. When you're logging in, dude. You know how when you log in, you go to test.salesforce.com and it says, oh, here's the domain Z. So it remembers your old domain. It doesn't automatically know that you have a new domain. So I would click on it and it would try to take me.
Oh, the saved user list?
The saved user list, exactly.
Okay, I got
saving the old domain names instead of the new ones after the sandbox refresh.
I never used the saved user list. It's So
I use
noticed it.
But it's a thing. So the fact that these are getting stabilized and now your my domain URL in the sandbox will not have the actual like server shard number in it is great. So that's a thing.
Do you want to go European?
Why, Brian?
What?
Do you kiss your mother with that mouth?
Are you saying I'm being continental?
I've thought about making some sort of joke about being the opposite and being continental, but that doesn't really seem to work. Either way, we have to worry about our data in the EU, or rather for people from the EU. So
even if they're in the United States.
Exactly. We really need to get like Ian Gotts or somebody on this show. We got to talk about GDPR.
He's on the list.
He's on the list.
He's been asking us to set a meeting date for
Let's do it, Ian.
Months now.
I know.
This is on you because every time I say, hey, how about this date? Then suddenly you're not available.
Hey, life sucks. So there's a few more things going into place in Summer 18 for GDPR. The individual object is actually going to get some Class 1 object features, things like record types, custom actions and buttons and links, the ability to undelete, being recognized in process builders. So, yay. Getting individual stuff is good. Also, this is one of those like, holy hell, you guys are finally doing this. I think I made a comment online that Hell needed to go check its thermostat because it probably froze over when they announced this. And that is, you'll be able to filter field history reports based on old and new values.
Couldn't you do that in Classic?
No.
Be able to say, show me where the old value was blah, blah, blah?
It's one of those things where you're like, oh, I should be able to run a report while I'm saying only show me the values where the old value was X. No, it has never been an option ever in any case whatsoever.
I think I'm thinking stage duration history.
Yeah, maybe. But field history tables, object history tables, no, you've never been able to do this. And like since the very beginning of Salesforce. And people have been asking for it for years and years and years and years and years and years. I remember getting burned by it back in 2011. And now we actually get it because of GDPR. It's now we have to have the ability to run reports based on historical values. So there we go.
Yep. And merging, right? Merging is going to be a little bit different here because you're going to have to know which record basically to save for all this privacy data stuff.
Exactly. So it's going to take individuals into consideration. If you're merging two contacts that are on the same individual, or maybe only one of them has an individual, it'll still be able to keep it. That sort of thing.
Ugh, what a headache.
And also, no, it's going to get more headachy because the right to forget doesn't just apply to your customers. It also applies to your users as well if they're in the EU. So Salesforce has had to include the ability to obfuscate inactive users. In other words, you're looking at a username and it'll appear like gobbledygook, because that way it's what do you call it? Pseudonymous. It's obfuscated so that you can't just see it. You have to actually cross-reference it against something else in Salesforce.
So you're talking like the created by, last modified by.
Exactly.
Suddenly just gets all blurry and unreadable.
No, not blurry, like gibberish.
Gibberish.
Like no vowels. Like alphabet soup.
Huh.
So, yep. So that'll be fun. What else we got? We got we're coming to the end of the list. We're getting there. Product schedules in Lightning. I know not a lot of people use it, but it was one of those things that was preventing entire groups of orgs from going over.
Yeah. I like
That's now a thing.
Product schedules.
Yep.
It's really good, especially if you're getting like different prices for multiple years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, hey, we're going to buy I sell you a 3-year deal, but you're going to pay different prices for each year. Product schedules, fantastic.
Another thing that was preventing people from migrating over, libraries. Libraries are now
Why
in
is
Lightning.
the public library preventing people from
Lightning library, Salesforce library.
The file library.
File libraries, yes. And the ability to control and configure and access libraries from Lightning is finally there. So that's good. List views in tasks now are a little bit less sucky. You can actually do Kanban as well, and a normal kind of list view as well. Multitask creation. So you can, if you're making a task, you can actually pick multiple users. Now it doesn't share that one task.
It creates duplicates.
It creates duplicates, but it's still like you don't have to go and manually make each and every task and blah 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 and take forever. You can actually make one task and just assign a bunch of people to it, and it'll automatically duplicate that task out. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, which means as an admin, when it becomes Admin Appreciation Day, you can create one task and assign everyone in your org the task to give you your Admin Appreciation Day gift.
Task. Love me. Task subjects. So this is something that existed in Classic, and people either love it or they don't care. But now we have it in Lightning. These predefined task subjects, or you can free type, whichever you want. Lightning email templates are now fully functional and operational. We now have access to rich text again.
I think he completely missed an opportunity to do a Star Wars fully operational reference here, Mark.
That was the reference. I was being subtle, Brian. We're not getting paid for that one. The Han Solo promotion is
next episode. Yeah.
Way to spoil. They're doing some kind of new merge language as well for merge fields. So if you see triple brackets on something, that's going to be the new merge language. Keep that in mind.
Well, the other thing with the email is certain objects are going to be kind of like cross-contained. So like lead and contact. Instead of like being able to have to say contact dot whatever, you could actually do just like recipient, like you could do in the classic email templates.
Yeah. Okay. Rich text in the mobile client. Didn't have that before. That's really cool. Nice to have that. And then we got a whole bunch of service stuff. Case teams now in Lightning.
Finally available, yeah.
That's another thing that was preventing entire groups of people from moving over. Mass quick actions are a thing. It's actually not just for support, but or for service, but it gets lauded as such.
And here's the tease. I got to share the tease because this is one of my ideas out on the exchange is to have a closed case page in Lightning like we have in Classic. So they're teasing me. Now you can have a closed case action that would include internal comments.
Yep, that's
just like the closed case page. So you can actually say, hey, I'm closing the case and add my internal comment without having to go back to the case, go into the related tab and adding it.
And see, that's the thing is what they're trying to do is they're trying to come up with a way to not have to have a closed case page.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. As much as I like it, still not.
No, I
still
think,
not quite there.
I think you're just being stubborn, Brian. I think you're just being stubborn.
I want my pony, darn it. Shauna may not be there. I still want my pony.
Mass quick actions we were mentioning, they're now not just on cases and a couple other things. They're also on accounts, campaigns, contacts, ops, and work orders. So that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Macros. Actually have called macros to insert text at your mouse cursor.
That is so cool. That's
potentially
seems like a small thing, but oh no, believe me.
Well, no, it depends on what you create for your macro.
Oh yeah. It depends on whether or not you have macros that are basically small chunks of text as opposed to an entire letter to your customers. So if you needed to mix and match paragraphs, like that's a really good way to do that. Omnichannel, don't have to go into Classic to configure it. Field service now works with Lightning communities. So if you have partners that you're doing field service with, that's going to be really super
powerful.
Field
service has a whole huge section in the release.
It does.
So if you're using field service, you have to read it.
We didn't go through all of it because frankly, it would have been a lot of time just to go over the field service thing. If you're using field service, please go give it a perusal. And keep in mind, for those of you who aren't using it, it's one of the big up and coming things.
Yep. If you got people who are going out like technicians and so forth, if you're the AT&T and Charter and other worlds, or people like the folks who are doing, the plumbing work, anyone who's going out on location, field service Lightning could be potentially for you. We
also have a tool because Lightning knowledge is different. Like it's not just you can't use the exact same knowledge records. So it's been a pain in the butt. So what they've done is they've introduced a migration tool. It's in beta. For you to migrate all of your classic knowledge over to Lightning knowledge. And then lastly, they're going to do a dedicated mobile app just for Service Cloud. So
Say what?
Yeah. It's more lightweight because it doesn't have everything. It doesn't have all of your objects and everything like that. Just the ones that you designate. And it's a lightweight client.
Yeah. Now, we've talked about a lot. And we haven't even scratched the surface. There's still tons of stuff if you're a community, or you're going to want to read the section of communities because there's a bunch of stuff coming out for communities. There's some security stuff that's coming out.
There's all the dev stuff. We didn't cover all the dev stuff.
All the dev stuff. But like not having to require your users to have a password, passwordless login for external users. I mean, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, not for Salesforce users.
No, it's external users.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're definitely going to want to take a perusal. What I always like to do is I open up the release notes, and if I'm doing this, I use the web version, and I look at the how and when do features become available, because Salesforce has all the features listed out with bolded links to take you to the section, and it'll let you know, like, is it enabled for users right away? Is it enabled for admins and developers? Does it require admin setup, or do you have to call Salesforce to get it enabled? And it's a really great way to kind of take a quick look through the release notes to see if there's something you need to take a look at now.
And with that, I think we can move on and start to wrap up this episode. But we do have a couple of things to announce real quick. We announced this one last episode, but Brian and I are going to be presenting at Midwest Dreamin'. It is our infamous session that we did at a couple Dreamforces back called Know the Flow Code.
Yes, come for the outfits, stay for the knowledge.
We're going to share secrets and tips, best practices that we have written, scribed into the sacred book of the Flow Code. Come and join the Flownatics as we pledge our allegiance to all things flow.
And we may be doing a live episode recording of the WizardCast and interview. Do you think we should announce the guests like we did the first time we did a live interview at Midwest Streaming?
You know what? I don't think it's going to be a surprise to anybody who our guest is. I don't know if we should bother.
Our guest will be
Safe Harbor.
So there you have it.
Mm-hmm.
One last announcement that we want to do real quick, and that is that if you are a fan
or even if you're not,
if you like dungeons, maybe dragons, maybe the two together, we have Dungeons and Dreamforce. We've actually begun recording, and when I say we, I mean myself and John Graff plus some other community members, for a kind of more of a podcast-oriented version. We're going to start doing this for charity. There will be a URL that we'll have up shortly, put in the show notes, to donate. The donations will go to Pep Up Tech to benefit our game, and the games are going to be made available on the CloudForce Collective podcast feed, wherever you find fine podcasts. So please give us a listen there. You can hear my Dragonborn Samurai chop through goblins.
Such a nerd.
Yeah.
WizardCast is produced by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, directed by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, technical administration by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, script writing by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, audio editing by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, website maintenance by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, Infinity Gauntlet manufacturer by Brian Kwong, and our intern this episode was Sandy Simpson.
And you can be an intern too. Just follow us at WizardCast_pod on Twitter.
Or come up to us during events like Midwest Streaming and tweet about us so we can remember to add you to our list.
Also, send us your interview suggestions, jokes, videos, tips, and feedback to WizardCast at thewizardnews.com, or head over to thewizardnews.com and click Contact WizardCast.
And we want to hear from you on the unlikely chance that we actually get Parker Harris on this podcast. What question would you like us to ask him?
Submit a question by going to bit.ly/ParkerQuestions and fill out our short form. If Salesforce ever gets bought by Disney, hey, that might be our end.
That's true. Also, eventually we'll get around to doing another idea exchange highlight. We want to hear your ideas. What Salesforce ideas do you want to get a little bit more notice?
Go to bit.ly/idea highlight to submit an idea to us.
Don't forget to subscribe to the WizardCast and receive our next episode automatically.
And please post reviews on Apple Podcasts, aka iTunes, and share this episode. It helps others to have to endure what you just had to go through.
Once again, I'm Brian.
And I'm going to go hit Tilted Towers.
What's Tilted Towers?
It's a fork knife reference, Brian.
Thanks for listening. Seriously, is it fork? Did you say fork or fort?